Hi there, and welcome to the Wednesday podcast presented by This Is Ibrox. Apologies there, that was entirely my fault for my laptop deciding to do a restart before we come on. So thanks to everybody who's still waiting and tuning in. But as always, I'm joined by two fantastic guests. The first is, it seems like it's forever since I've been on with you. It's the TII veteran himself. It's Andrew Anderson. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm all right. Didn't make Ibrox last night due to this lurgy that's going about. Seems to have got this family as well. But I've crawled out my bed to do this tonight and chip in my tuppence worth, for want of a better expression.
I think the lurgy's affecting most of the bloody team as well, but that's another story for another time. And unbelievably, I'm delighted to be on with this guest. I don't even know how this has happened, but this is the first time I think we are both podding with each other, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's John Walker. How are you, John?
I'm fantastic. That's because we've just settled that beef, Kyle, that we try to pretend didn't happen. So, it's good being on with you.
I know. Is it? Listen, I've supported DK Thistle throughout all my days. I'm sorry, mate. All right. But as always, look, there's plenty to talk about. We'll get on to the events of yesterday. What was one of the worst first halves of football I've ever seen at Ibrox. Then we'll get on to what turned out to be a pretty decent second half showing. A few things to discuss around a certain Mr. Todd Cantwell. I thought his post-match interview was very interesting, very cold. Get the guy's thoughts on Nico Raskin and where he fits into the team as well, or into the bigger picture, I should say. There's some really interesting points from Clement post-match. We'll discuss the number of academy players. I know it was a bit of circumstance, but the fact there was, 6-7 academy players on the bench or on the pitch last night, I thought was really good. Discuss the Union Bears after full time. We chat about some of the departing players and the dead rubber on Saturday against Hearts. But we'll begin with the first half performance from last night. As I've already mentioned, it was totally devoid of urgency, any passion, any structure for me. Andy, we'll go to you first and get your thoughts on that first half. And I imagine some of your feelings from the previous few weeks might spill into this as well. So let them have it.
No, listen, I think, I speak on behalf of majority of Rangers supporters, it was a lethargic kind of atmosphere last night. From what I've seen, as I say, I was in my sick bed full of Beechams and Lemsips and etc, etc. So actually I did think I was hallucinating when we went 2 goals down. I must admit, I did wonder if it was the amount of medication that I was taking. But I think everybody's kind of lethargic. Everybody can see an end to the season. It can't come quick enough, which is happening all too often. It's just happening all too often for every Rangers fan, really. But not only have we got a very important game in a couple of weeks, it's a very important game against a team that I believe we have to go out and make a better account of ourselves than we have done in the last few years, put it that way. So you mentioned there at the top of the show that we'll discuss the dead rubber and as in the Hearts game, Sunday coming. It's not a dead rubber, I don't think. I think this has got to be a dress rehearsal for next weekend. So there's so much to play for, but the lethargy is still there. Everybody is just scunnered because our hopes were so high to fall so hard. There was going to be really no lift last night as such. The crowd was quite quiet. I thought the attendance was very low. I didn't see the performance coming though, I must admit. You just think 11 Rangers players, professional football players, go out and make a better account of yourself. That obviously didn't get translated onto the pitch, and that was awful to see as a fan's point of view. You're expecting a reaction from last weekend. You're expecting something with a cup final coming. To see that in the first half last night was just simply awful.
Yeah, it was not good viewing last night. That it was just, as you said, it was awful. John, you've got the delightful task of talking about how you felt about that first half. How were Dundee able to exploit us like that? And there's a wee comment here. Aldo RSC says can't defend cross balls. It's worrying.
It's awful. I don't actually know what work we do off the ball. I was pretty scathing about the press in regards to the Celtic game. On that alone, even defending things, like everyone's 5 yards too high for the first goal. Everyone. There's nobody able to block the cross. There's nobody able to stop the cross going across Butland's 6 to 9 yard area going in there. And the second goal is, I mean, I'll crack on about this. Normally when I'm moaning about set plays at Rangers, it's the attacking element that gets focused on all the time. We need to score for corners. We are one of the worst organised sides defending set balls and have been now for 5 managers. And since Gerrard's left, it's been the same every single time. Yilmaz is definitely meant to be over that side. And he's looking behind him. He doesn't know whether to go. McCausland doesn't shout for him to come over. But neither of them react to the short free kick, which Dundee do continually, by the way. They always shift that ball. It normally comes in off the first shift. So why they've not worked on that, I don't know. So the defending, the lack of awareness, the lack of organisation, it just reeks of a team that isn't us. But, well, a team of our level shouldn't be, but it definitely is us, because these are repeat patterns that continually happen. And I'll keep shouting on this because this is a coaching staff issue. You can blame the players as much as you want, but see if things like set-piece set-up isn't drilled into people, it has to go to the coaches eventually. It has to drill that into people. The teams who are most organised at set plays concede the least goals for set plays. We concede an inordinate amount of goals for set plays and crosses into the box. It's brutal. And see, when a team like Dundee especially, I did a thread on them before, Dundee are the most potent side from set play areas in the league. 17 set plays they've scored from, that's now 18. And we are not organised to deal with it. Seems amateur to me, almost seems amateur.
So where does that issue lie? Is it with the players or is it with the management team? Because you said, it's been ongoing since Gerrard. Is it just a case of like that's what Clement has got to work on pre-season? Say if you're dedicating, I don't know, 40% to attacking, and we got to now say 60% of our training is now focusing on defending, which is mental for a team like Rangers.
So see if you look at the English Premier League, there are teams with set play analysts. All of them have set play analysts, by the way, and there's teams with set play coaches. The teams with set play coaches are Arsenal, Man City, Aston Villa, and I think Burnley have one now, and Everton, sorry. Those are the 5 best teams at scoring from set plays. It's not a coincidence that the teams actually work on them on the training ground, as well as go over on video, do the best. So if you look at Yilmaz's reaction to the second goal, Yilmaz is moving over to the right area because he's been told there is no point in you being in this box when they've got a free kick. So you go and be the second man on the wall. And if they go short, you and McCausland are out there. But Yilmaz doesn't know whether he should go or not, which suggests to me that it's been shown on video, but never been shown on the training ground. And that's what bothers me. So when I'm saying Rangers, it's negligent, it's amateur, it's because I feel like we think it's okay just to show video. I know Celtic did that under Postecoglou. They'd never done anything on set plays, and Celtic conceded an inordinate amount of goals for set plays, even with a successful Postecoglou. And who's the worst team in English football just now at conceding for set plays? It's Tottenham Hotspur and Ange Postecoglou, who does not think it's worthwhile spending any time on the training ground on set plays. I think in Scottish football it's very unique that teams like Dundee can come to Ibrox, and they scored the opener at the Ibrox 3-1 game from a set play. It's the leveller. It's what these teams are waiting for. So see if you're not willing to spend 40 minutes a week on stopping what Dundee and that are going to want to levy at you, you're making an even playing field when those balls go out, because Dundee are good at that, because they almost drew level against Celtic a couple of weeks ago at Dens Park. It's a pure leveller if you're not focused and working on it. It drives me up the wall, because working on set plays is something you can control. You can control it. You can be comfortably in the right position when the ball's dead. You can get in there and be in your structure. Whilst the game's moving, people can get caught out because they've tried to press, or they've slipped, or they've went to the wrong ball, or the pass has not been anticipated. Things can happen. But when the play's dead, there's no excuses. There's none. Get in your fucking structure and do your job.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. It's when you can see how passionate you are about that, and it reminds me of Clement a wee bit, because he always says that there are things you can't control and there are things you can control. And as you said, if this is something that we can clearly control, it just seems baffling to me, because it's been so noticeable this season. That partly because you've been going on about it and putting your threads and all that stuff about our poor performances from set plays. I suppose was one of them not even a set play. It was just a big cross in for the left-hand side, which I suppose is effectively as good as it. It's certainly something we need to work on. Andy, let's shift it on to something a bit more positive. The second half was a lot better. And we'll come on to Clement's post-match comments and stuff like that, but he obviously came in and he gave them an absolute rocket at half-time, to say the least. Where did that come from? Like, why does it take that to produce that level of performance in the second half? And where has that been all season?
That's exactly the question I was wondering as well when I heard these post-match comments, Kyle. To say it was furious at half-time, and managers can be furious at half-time and they can change things, they can tweak things, they can perhaps even change their mentality in order to go out and win the second half, which we've done. The goal prior to half-time helped that, obviously. Made it massively different, I think. But you're right, why did it take that? You shouldn't have to wait until it's like that to come out, especially off the back of the result Saturday gone. You shouldn't have to wait to half-time and 2 goals down. And to listen to John, he obviously his wits end. Poor John, he's really at his wits end there. He was going on a mile a minute, but he's absolutely right and everything. It makes total sense. But it shouldn't get to the stage where you're 2-0 down at home to Dundee to come out the traps and play like the way we know Rangers can. And that's sometimes why I've found myself questioning, especially the last maybe 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks perhaps, the ability of the Rangers teams there. Okay, we've not got the personnel we want. So many injuries. Danilo, Matondo, Sima, all long-term injuries. We don't have the personnel to start games that we want, but we do have the ability without these players to beat the teams in front of us, as shown from November till March. So from March till now, it can only be mentality, in my opinion. The ability of these football players are there to go and beat the 11 football players in front of them. So it comes down to out-and-out mentality. And I think that must have been the biggest shift last night. If he went in at half-time and went through them and gave them the hairdryer treatment or whatever it's called these days, then great, that's fine. But where was it 2-3 weeks ago? Where was it half-time at Ross County, half-time at Dundee away? That's the way I'm thinking now. I'm by no means a statistician or tacticals or anything like that, but I'm a self-professed Rangers dad, and I think it is mainly about mentality at this stage of the season, and that was lacking. So to hear him say that he was furious and whatever he done at half-time, great. He got the response. We went on and scored 4 goals in the second half and won the game quite comfortably, which is great. Where was that 3, 4, 5 weeks ago when we needed it?
Yeah, that's exactly it, and the question that virtually every Rangers supporter is asking themselves. John, I want to give you something positive to talk about tactically. So where did you see the sort of tactical changes last night in that second half? I mean, it surely just couldn't have been he gave them a rocket. There had to be a bit more to it than that.
I just think the players got Cantwell on the ball a little bit better and see the structure behind the ball with Tavernier kind of inverted. I think Robbie Fraser was very good at it when he came on as well. The two of them are really narrow, which allowed Diamonde to move forward a little bit more. It allowed Cantwell to go and roam, which I think he's really, really good at, which is why I'm always such a big fan of him in different areas of the pitch. So I don't think it was massively that, but I think if you look at the 2 goals that turned the game around, Cantwell's ended up on the left for a cross, ended up on the right for an overhit cross. It's allowing Cantwell to find those freedom areas if people aren't particularly willing to go into those 10 areas. So if you have an arrow fullback alongside a Raskin, you can push Diamonde into there and you can let Cantwell go roam. You've got your wingers pinning people. I just think it was that little bit of movement. I think that's the unique selling point of a Todd Cantwell. I think you can let him go and do different things in different areas, but to allow it to happen, you need the structure behind him correct. And we're not getting a lot of goals, in my opinion, from areas that we used to, like especially on like the left-hand side, those little passes that Yilmaz was doing. So if it means you can float a Cantwell into that left area, I think that's all that happened. But I actually do think it was a lot of mentality, to be honest. I think the goal just before half time changes it as well. I think that just gets Dundee a little bit back up, and Dundee don't really react at all. I think they were kind of. I didn't think Dundee were that good. I just think when you go 2-0 up, you can't really say much about Dundee being poor.
Yeah, no. I think that's fair enough. For what it was worth, I thought Dundee were okay. Every time I've seen them this season, they've looked organised. As you said, they obviously work on their set plays. They actually had some good passages of play in that first half, but it was the Cantwell show in that second half, as I'm sure we'll come on to. But I'll stick with you here, John, because you touched on it there. It was a discussion I was having with somebody at my work today, and it's about, does this squad have a mentality issue? And he was talking about, look at that first half. He's going, that's what's wrong with it. There was no Lundstram in there and Goldson, and why should we be playing that badly in the first half? And then he was saying, but there's no Lundstram and Goldson for the second half, and that's why we played so well in the second half. So which side of that do you fall on? Is it a bit of both? Is there a mentality problem in this squad?
With some players, I think it's gone on too long for us to not levy some of the mentality issues at the players. It's gone on too long. We've seen them continually slip up when there's been we seem to be able to, for a couple of years, worked very hard to close a gap on Celtic. In the minute we've taken the lead, our horse has broke its leg and fell over and let Celtic go ahead again. It seems like that is kind of the pattern. We're quite happy chasing them, and then when the onus on us, we kind of get nervy about it. So there does appear to be a mentality issue. As for people playing for Ibrox, I don't think so, because I think Tavernier, Goldson, even Lundstram are always been players that have been willing to go on the ball when you can feel the crowd have completely turned against you. I think there's different ways of calling it a mentality problem, but I think the balls that Goldson, Tavernier and that actually showed to continually go on the ball, they've obviously got something strong-willed about them to do it, but I just think there's maybe something of the intensity, especially going to Parkhead against Celtic, just seems to rattle people a little bit. I think yesterday it was more to do with the fact you've got Leon King coming out the cold, you've got Raskin and Diomande starting the game for the first time together. Very much Ross McCausland's came back in for a start. It's a very different team, so it takes time to get up to speed. So people don't always recognise that it's all well and good training and doing your small boxes, possession games, and walking through sometimes unopposed training sessions with players that and then jumping out onto a pitch against a team that are going to be set up to press you in a different way than you've been prepared for all week, or they've got something up their sleeve, and then you just expect Raskin, Diomande and Cantwell to go, right, you guys train the guy, should be playing the guy perfectly. It's not like that. Every player needs to get up to speed, and I thought Raskin was really good for somebody that, again, pretty much came out of the cold in the last couple of weeks. I think he's not shut anyone up, but I think he's maybe raising the question on our end a little bit, going, why was Raskin not getting more minutes 5, 6, 7 weeks ago? Because he always has looked to me the one that is a bit above, like a John Lundstram.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and that's certainly something we'll come on to later on, because as you alluded to, although there was that's the first time Diomande and Raskin have played together, I thought there was signs of certainly something that we could build on for next season. But Andy, I'll ask a very similar question to yourself. It's always the same three players that get it levelled at them. Lundstram, Goldson, and Tav. Two of them weren't playing last night. Again, the guy in work I was talking to, he was saying that he thinks that we don't have that second half performance if Lundstram and Goldson are in that team. Is there something deeper? Is it, as John says, is it just that the players just can't handle the intensity of some of these occasions, which is mental given the fact that these players have been fortunate enough to know what the pressure of playing in a European final is like?
Exactly, that's the thing. They're no stranger to pressure, but there must be something in it. I think there must be something in it, in order, because it keeps happening. And as John says, last night it could be put down to the fact that we've had a makeshift team many a times this season, but last night was particularly makeshift, if you know what I mean. Hardly any minutes for Raskin, Yilmaz coming back, Diomande and Raskin first time together, things like that, King. So that didn't help last night. It's not solely, they're not in this position because John Lundstram, Connor Goldson and James Tavernier can't handle pressure. That can't be true. It took us, was it three possible chances to get to the top of the table? We had these games in hand, and we had a game against Aberdeen at Ibrox. We could have went top with a barrel load of goals. Didn't come. It was okay. We moved on. I think it was the next midweek. We played Ross County, and did the goalkeeper not have a ridiculous amount of saves or shots on target? Dessers could have had about 9. The pressure.
Dessers could have had about 9 every game, but though.
Well, that's true. That doesn't really narrow it down. It could maybe have had 12 then, Kyle. But to show up in that game, and okay, we didn't take the chances. We didn't go top on goal difference that night, but the chances were there. We won the game very comfortably. Wasn't that comfortably, actually? I remember it was 2-1 for a long time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But to show up and to get to the top of the table, it can't just be that you can't handle the pressure, because that pressure would have happened then. To go top with the games coming up, I don't know. There must be something in the mentality, whether they feel the pressure of being top and leading. It could be something along their lines. But you're right, it does get levelled at the three: Lundstrom, Goldson and Tavernier. And listen, I've done it. I've done it myself. I've said it myself. I'm not renewing my season ticket till they three are gone and things like that. I've thrown hissy fits and all the rest of it. These things happen, and that's you get paid a lot of money as a football player to do. But they've showed up and they've took the pressure. I mean, Tavernier penalty kicks, one down to Celtic, pinging them into the top corner. That's intense pressure. The pressure that you're reading the newspapers or listening or reading Twitter in the lead up to a game against Dundee or Ross County when you're top of the table brings a pressure. But not as much pressure as standing in that penalty spot, one down to Celtic at Ibrox and pinging it into the top corner against a England international goalkeeper. That's intense pressure, and he's handled it. So it can't be solely that. I think it's a mixture, and perhaps over time, these things have become more clear, if you like, that it's a mixture of the mentality and the ability. I think in order for us to turn it around next season, there's going to have to be a clear out to an extent, perhaps not as drastic as a lot of folk think. But if we want to close the gap, because there is a gap between us and Celtic, close the gap and overtake them for next season, we have to start controlling that midfield, and that's against every team. Last night proves it.
Yeah, it's the perfect example of that, isn't it? Hugo Bayer here says Tav, Goldson, Barisic and Lundstrom can't win Old Firm games. They can, because they have. Aldo RFC says, no, they just ain't good enough. And Ross says, this Rangers team always struggle when they're expected to win important games. Can't remember the last strong performance in a pressure game. And yeah, unbelievably, I'm actually agreeing with Ross for once. So yeah, I think he's hit the nail right on the head there. Look, we'll get talking to the man who is featuring in our thumbnail and is the question of tonight. We will get to the will Todd Cantwell be a Rangers player next season. But John, Todd Cantwell last night obviously had a bit of a point to prove, not featuring at all at the weekend, which I found, that's a bit of a smack in the face, to be honest with Clement. First of all, what did you make? You've already touched on it a bit in terms of the players giving the ball to him more, but I thought in that second half he was brilliant. That is the type of Todd Cantwell that we want to see in terms of, a bit, being a bit braggadocious, a bit of skill. So first of all, what did you make his performance, and what do you think of the way that Clement seems to be giving them this sort of tough love treatment at the minute?
I thought Todd Cantwell was exceptional. I know I have spoke to my Celtic fan mates today, and I know they're like, mate, it was against Dundee. There's a reason he's not starting Old Firms, etc., etc. But he was playing against the team he was playing against. He's not in charge of who he plays against. He was playing against Dundee last night, who are a top six side. So Hibs, Aberdeen, Motherwell. If he was playing one of them, you probably wouldn't say the same thing. It's just because you expect Dundee to be lower down. Todd Cantwell, if you give Todd Cantwell the ball 3 times, Rangers will get a goal. In the final third, Rangers will get a goal or a goal scoring opportunity. It's as simple as that. It's that clear to me. This is why I'm so annoying in our group chat, Kyle, about Todd Cantwell. He's the only player in that squad that has a unique ability to create something out of nothing. He's the only one. James Tavernier puts good crosses into the box, but it's stuff that other fullbacks can do. Todd Cantwell in this squad is the only one that can do what he does. He's a level above everyone else, and it winds me up that he's probably going to leave in the summer and he's going to go back and everyone's going to say he's got his tail between his legs. Todd Cantwell has not been given a fair crack at being Rangers' out-and-out star player that you build a team around that works to his qualities. Because if you continually give Todd Cantwell not a free role, Todd Cantwell works his fucking bollocks off as a Rangers player. If you get him in that midfield with other people who are not scared to find him, because we can go look back at the Hearts semi-final and I can find you 10 occasions where John Lundstrom bypasses a ball that can go into Cantwell in the 10 and he just ignores them and plays balls out wide, balls to centre-halves. See if you find midfielders, Diamonde and Raskin are 2 of them, that will play those balls into Todd Cantwell and find Todd Cantwell where Todd Cantwell wants to go, we'll create and score goals. We just will. It's the reason why he's created the most chances, he's got the most assists and the most goals of our attacking midfielders. He's the best player in the team. You need to build and work to that, and you just need to find a way for him to be in the team. If you need to then sacrifice one other player in that team, Clement, you do it. You find a different system. If it's Sterling playing in midfield alongside a Diomande, if it's Raskin as well, if it's bloody Raskin, Sterling and Diamondi, if it's all three of them, with a Cantwell in front and a 4-3-1-2, you do it. You find a way to get Todd Cantwell on that pitch to create chances. I don't care what your system is. You figure that out, especially at this point in the season. This is the one thing that I will agree on, people. I am big on style of play. I'm big on that football should look good. But see, when you're 4 games away from winning the title, you do what Walter Smith did and you just fucking win games. You play 2 left backs, you play 2 left backs on the left side, 2 right backs on the right side, and make sure your strikers can score goals, and you win a title.
Aye. And a random youth player that you've never heard of in there for good measure as well. Exactly. I said there's a few comments coming in here. Bob Dublin says, not strong enough for me. He's an Instagram player, like a cartoon player. Hopefully makes some money on him. Yeah, John clearly disagreeing with that one. But listen, the people put the comments in, and I no matter what side of the divide they're on, I will pick them up. William says, Cantwell was better in the second half. That's because Salah was blown out his arse second half. The first half, he never got a sniff. Cantwell will go back to the same next week. Andy, what did you make of Todd Cantwell's post-match interview yesterday? I've never really seen him like that. He was very direct. He got asked by, I think it was Luke Shanley that was interviewing him, did you mean it? And he just was like, no, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not even going to talk about it. We won the game. End of discussion. He seemed very cold, very aloof, very serious, just... given the fact that he'd scored that goal, I thought his celebration was encouraging. The fact, he's kissing the badge and going around the fans. But yeah, what did you make of Todd Cantwell yesterday in that post-match interview in particular?
Well, I thought it was great yesterday, same as John. I thought it was great second half. I thought it was fantastic. I'm not reading too much into his post-match. I think he's a very clever player and a clever man. I think Todd Cantwell, he's obviously not stupid enough to stand in front of Sky Sports camera and make it all about him 4 days after getting beat off Celtic. All right, he wasn't involved, but he still can't do that, and I think he knows that. He can't stand there with a smile on his face and start joking about how he meant it. Things that you would do perhaps in September when you score the 4th goal and a 4-1 win at Ibrox, you'd maybe have a wee joke about that. But you can't joke about it 4 days after effectively losing the league, whether he was involved in that game or not. But listen, I agree with John. He makes such a valid point. He's the only player we have at the moment that you could build a team around. Now, he may well leave. I hope not. He may well leave, and we may well get somebody in that can play the number 10 better or win as a league next season. But as it stands right now, he's the only player that we can kind of build a team around, and you've got to fit him into that team. He's also, if you think back to the last, say, 4, 5, 6 months, he's not had a settled team around him, and he's not had the same 2 players behind him. He's not had the same 2 players playing in the right, left of the front 3. He's always been chopped and changed. He's had a few injury worries himself. I think more than that, I think he's somebody put the comment up there saying he's an Instagram player. I just think he's a normal social media 20-odd-year-old these days. I think that's what they are. And I think managers need to learn how to manage that a wee bit better now. I'm not saying Clement has got to pander to Cantwell. That can't happen. Of course it can't. But I think he's got to find a way to marry the 2 things together. There's definitely something going on between the 2 of them, but it's not been hidden, I don't think. I think if Rangers want to be successful and Todd Cantwell's to be a part of that, Clement has to find a way to manage him and get him into that team with players around about him.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I completely agree with you, the both of you, that he is a player that should be... we should be building the whole team round about him. I remember, being on the first pod of the season and talking to Kieran Wallace about it, and that was what he said. And there was I've never seen such universal agreement amongst Rangers fans before, and that he's the last player we had like that was Ryan Kent in terms of his creativity, his ability to take the ball past the man, and just the fact that Cantwell can do it centrally, I think, is an absolute bonus. But listen, there's loads of comments coming in about it. Aldo here says, rather keep Cantwell next season, to be honest. KW, who's one of our subscribers, says Cantwell must stay for revenge against Celtic. Pete Lawrence says we need a few hardy men in our team to balance things out big time, and cue that for the bingo cards for our mention of Terry Hurlock. The Bluebells Are Blue says Cantwell is a caged bird. I actually think he is, and yeah, it's just about, maybe letting them go and free. And RFC 72 with a fantastic point here in terms of whether or not he'll be here next season. He says the final will be the keep or sell game. If he goes missing again, he'll be gone. But if he's a difference maker, he might be kept. I would even go as far to say that if he doesn't start that game, I think I will be surprised to see Cantwell here, because he's definitely a player that needs to be loved. On you go, John.
So a lot of the Cantwell interviews, right, prior to yesterday's one, because it was colder, one of the things that I've always noticed with Todd Cantwell, and it's something that it stands out because I don't hear it a lot from other Rangers players, and it's always when they're asked about the pressure of being a Rangers player, I always hear players say things like, "Oh, it's part of being a Rangers player. This is what happens when you join this club. It's the expectation. We understand that from the fans." Todd Cantwell, I'm 99% sure, is the only person I've ever heard repeatedly say, "That's the pressure I want and I thrive in." He enjoys it. He actually enjoys the fact that he will go onto a pitch at Hampden next Saturday and there'll be 25,000 people that want to boo him and want to make it loud and want to make an arse of himself, because he actually enjoys it. It's why he's not shy on Instagram. He's got very thick skin. He's just a young guy that really enjoys what he does and doesn't mind winding people up. And I said this point at the time. Everyone says, "Oh, he wants to act like the fake hard man." I think there was a clip of McGregor asking Lawrence if he's the new hard man or something like that. It was on Saturday when the incident happened at the start of the game. Cantwell gets under people's skin. That can make something silly happen in a derby. I don't buy this nonsense that Cantwell's lazy. It doesn't work. I think Cantwell knows exactly what he needs to do in that midfield area to shut that down. I think he's very good at it, actually. He won 8 out of 10 tackles yesterday. He won 80% of his tackles for somebody who doesn't work hard and doesn't work back and doesn't know the structure. It's a hell of a lot of tackles, actually, more than anyone else in their team won last night against Dundee. Those are things that just go unnoticed, because I honestly think it's because he's fucking hairband and his hairstyle and the way he moves about the pitch. I honestly think it's the eye test flaw everyone, because I've seen folks say his stats aren't even that good. He's a top scorer attack midfielder. He's a top assist attack midfielder. He's our most creative. He's created the most chances, and he's got the highest tackling and duel stats and the most final third turnovers and pressing. What stat are you talking about that he's not delivering on?
Well, that's it. Again, we'll come on to it, but Clement touched on that exact thing in his post-match presser, that he's going to get all his stats up and that he does perform well. But there was last sort of couple of comments on it. El Jumbotron, and what a name that is, by the way, says, "Not got a much better player than Cantwell in the summer. Not sure why him and Raskin aren't playing a more important role this season." And the comments lost now, but whoever it was that said it, I'm sure it was said something like, you're spending 5-6 million minimal on getting a player like Cantwell and in the summer. But this brings me on to my next point nicely, Andy, and I'll come to you for this one. It is to do with a man that started for the first time in ages yesterday. As everybody knows, I'm a long-time admirer of the Belgian Nico Raskin. I thought he was pretty decent that second half through the middle. Is he played his way into a starting 11 for this cup final, or do you think he will be playing just through necessity anyway, Andy?
I think he's absolutely played his way in, but it also could be a bit of a necessity. I don't fancy putting Lundstrom in there next Saturday, put it that way. I don't see or want that to happen. Listen, I wonder why he's not been more involved as well. I'm a big admirer of Raskin. I really am. Raskin. I think we'll call him Raskin. Is it Raskin? There's an I in it. It's Raskin.
That's what I'm going with. That's what I've been saying all season.
But I think there's somebody on here that says it's Raskin. Am I right? I don't know who it is. Somebody's Craig
Ross, but we'll just ignore him.
So I think he's definitely played his way in, and quite rightly so. It's going to be an interesting one next week. When was the last time Nico Raskin started a game? Months ago anyway, start of the season. Did he even start one then? I don't know. So now he's going to have to go to Tynecastle and what's going to be a dress rehearsal, I would think, for the cup final, and then the first Old Firm Cup final since 2003 or something like that, which is a massively important game now that the league's definitely going to go to the other side of the city. This is a must-win cup for Rangers. So he's played his way in. Can he handle it? Yes, he absolutely can. I think he's got the ability. I think he's got the will. I think he's going to be more forward-thinking than John Lundstrom, which I think will be a good thing. Watching the Old Firm game there on Saturday, the amount of times Lundstrom let his man run off him was frightening. I don't see Raskin doing that next Saturday. That's going to be massively important. Sometimes you think of John Lundstram as sitting as a third centre half, which as much as sometimes that's a necessity, doing it properly, as he wasn't doing it properly. If Raskin can do that properly and marry that up with his ability going forward, I think we're on to a winner here. I think he's absolutely played his way back in, and rightly so. So we'll be interested to see next Saturday, especially this Saturday as well, to see how it goes with that. But for me right now, definitely starting for me.
Yes, it's hard to disagree with that, and I'm just going to bring this comment up before I ask you your thoughts on Nico Raskin there, John. But Ross says, I'm ready for John throwing hands with Clement over Cantwell. Definitely, as we need to get you more on a Wednesday more, John, because I'm absolutely loving this passion, and so is everybody in the comments. But yeah, what's your thoughts on where Raskin fits into this team? We know that it was sort of levelled that he'd been injured, and he wasn't. This is a football cliche, but he's not the same player after coming back from his injury type thing. Last night, he certainly showed a bit of that. So firstly, what's your thoughts on Raskin starting for the next 2 games, basically, which it looks like he might do? And are you excited by that potential partnership of him and Diomande in the central midfield? Because I think that they could be really, really good foils for each other.
I put that up on Twitter. The minute that I rewatched that Old Firm game on Sunday, I was like, it's Raskin, Diomande, Cantwell for the rest of the season. I don't want to see anyone else in that midfield. I want to see them 3 together, because I feel like what we've tried to do is we've tried Sterling and Lundstram in there for the physicality against Celtic. We've tried Lundstram in there continually just because of the build-up play. You need to try something different. Celtic don't have big physical players. Callum McGregor's a small footballer. Rio Hatate's a small footballer. Matt O'Reilly's a bit more physically built. But they're not big footballers, and they are just moving and passing around us and making us look really silly. As Andy said, John Lundstram get made to look 10 yards off Matt O'Reilly every time Matt O'Reilly wanted to move. Diomande, Raskin and Cantwell are mobile. I don't see them getting moved around that quickly. I don't see them getting moved around that easily. Raskin, I think when I was doing the Conor Barron feature stuff on Twitter, when I was doing the comparisons to Rangers midfielders, I was really surprised at how high Raskin was in all our stats. On duels, tackles, presses, passing, and long passing, he was so far above everyone else in our team. And that was surprising, because at that point he was fit and sitting on the bench. In fact, I don't think he was on the bench sometimes. And I've seen a couple of people say this on Twitter, that Cantwell and Raskin are pals, really close pals. I don't know if it's something extra, if there's something else going on that the 2 of them are now back in. That would just be a massive rumour and a massive OK Magazine gossip. But I know the two of them are like that. I like that off the pitch, because Cantwell said that in a couple of interviews. So I don't know if the 2 of them are maybe getting levied. Maybe the 2 of them have got a bit of an attitude, and that's what's held Raskin back. Because I don't understand it. I think Raskin, he's looked a bit iffy the games he's came on in the past, but I think, with the player we signed, the player we've seen, and the player we've seen last night, I think he is technically the best footballer that we can have in that area. I think Diomande, him and Cantwell are just a perfect foil, and I just can't see how we go to that Hampden game without anyone else in that midfield. If it goes back to Lundstram, you've created a sideshow. If you don't play Cantwell, you've created a sideshow. So do the simplest thing, do the thing that makes the most sense to fans, and also makes your team more potent and creating. And that's what that was. We have seen it all after the Old Firm. Rangers are just a long ball team. Rangers are just a direct team. They just play it long. Yeah. So that wasn't happening yesterday. It was going through all those 3 midfielders to create every chance. So, yeah, it needs to be Raskin. So fingers crossed nothing happens against Hearts, because that'll
Don't say that, man. That's the last thing I needed to hear tonight. Look, a couple of comments in here. RSC72 says, for the final, I'd prefer Dio, Sterling, Raskin, and either Cantwell at central attacking midfield with Silva, Dessers as a 2, or Cantwell on the left with Silva on the right. Well, at least we found John's burner account and he's commenting on it tonight. And an interesting comment here from the Bluebells, our Blues always says, sorry lads, what's exciting people about Dio is getting away with Lunny being the culprit of late, but Dio has been rotten as well. I'm going to caveat with saying he's not had a pre-season with us. He had a long time out injured. He's come back. He had that injury with his thumb, but I said it from the moment that I saw Mohamed Diomande. I really feel that he has the potential to be something special if he carries on the right attitude and carries on playing the way that he has been playing. Right, Andy, I'll come to you first. We'll move on to Clement's post-match reaction yesterday, or post-match presser, I should say. Always love Clement's post-match pressers, but I feel like maybe the shackles were off a wee bit, because of the circumstance we find ourselves in. He's maybe not offering that protection to the players that he was, even on the build-up to the game at the weekend there. This is what he had to say on the first half. Basically, he says, "I cannot make myself angry every half-time or before every game. That's impossible. It needs to come out of the team, and they need to understand that." It sounds like he's a bit perplexed as to why. I mean, because that's what it feels like. It's a similar cycle to previous seasons where Rangers only show up for one half. I mean, it's pretty bad, and I think that's a really, really insightful into what's been happening the past few months since he's come in. If he's having to go mental at them before a game starting, what did you make of his post-match presser, and what did you make of that comment in particular?
I think so. I think you're right. I think the shackles are off a wee bit. The league's finished now. He knows that. So he's not so much throwing his players under the bus as such, but he's maybe at his wit's end. Bearing in mind, since he came in October, whenever it was, we were never playing magnificent football, free-flowing football. We were grinding out wins. We were winning ugly at times, but he'd changed that from losing ugly, if you like. So he was never really doing that. It probably has been on their case a wee bit, but he's probably asking himself, why do I have a club this size going for the title? Why do I have to get as angry as this? Why do I have to get these professional players up for it as much as he is doing? Maybe the rumours are true that he has told some of the players that they're not in his thoughts for next season, and they've kind of down tools, for want of a better expression, and maybe he's pissed off with that. There's certainly something going down, but what I have seen on Twitter I laugh at, though, is that there's people questioning him already. Okay, there has been a couple of wee red flags there with the non-inclusion of Cantwell, old firm games, etc., etc. There's been a wee few things there, but under no circumstances is there question marks over Clement by now. Give him the summer, see what happens. I'm quite sure we'll all be pleasantly surprised, I think. But you're right, I think the shackles are off a wee bit last night. He's not thrown him under the bus, but he's probably at his wit's end. He'll be thinking as well, why do I need to do that to make you play like that? This could have happened at Dundee away, Ross County, Motherwell at Ibrox. All these things could have happened. Let's see who he's got his eye on in the summertime. Let's see who he wants to ship out the door. That could be equally as interesting, and we'll judge it from there.
Yeah, totally agree. It was interesting hearing what he had to say last night. And John, I'll come to you. There was a specific bit as well. He said, if you want to play for a team like Rangers, that's the basics. It needs to be there every time, but not just sometimes, but all the time. It's switched on, it's aggressive, it's everything you do with and without the ball. So we need to build a squad like that where everybody has this internal fire to do it every day. I've not heard him be that scathing about any performance. He didn't single anybody out there, but there's a clear message coming from the manager, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think it's what we're seeing as well. So as much as I'll make assumptions to the coaching and what's not happening and what hasn't went right, for all I know, also players aren't following instruction, and unfortunately he's stuck with the players that he currently has available to him, and he might just be having to continually play them out of necessity, even though he knows they've got shortcomings, loss in concentration, not following men, not knowing when the rotations are going to happen. Things like that could be very well realistic, and I could just be giving Rangers players way too much credit for their football intelligence because they're at a certain level. It sounds like he's just fed up, to be honest. It sounds like there's players there that he now knows. There's no real benefit to him keeping everyone happy. If people can't motivate themselves for a cup final, there's bigger problems ahead in their career. So he probably knows he's got that carrot now, but it's like, you can hate me all you want, but you're going to have to work hard to get in the cup final and try and win a trophy before you leave. And every player will put that aside and will work to that. Listening to the overlap, Andy Cole and Roy Keane were just talking about that, how some of them hated, Andy Cole and Teddy Sheringham hated each other, but they won a treble together, they played together regularly, they scored goals and set each other up. So players, when the time comes, will set all that aside. But I think Clement's just making it clear that there's certain people who will not be here, and if you've heard that message in the training ground, you probably don't need to be told you're not going to contract.
Yeah. Refreshing to hear him being that honest. And as you said, I think the most important thing is that I think that's the way the majority of the fan base see it as well. JD here says, although Clement to me seems like the right appointment, the board have been outed for not running the club the size of Rangers properly, which has started to become evident since 55. And RFC 72 says something similar. Since Gerrard, these players have been babied and allowed to get away with poor performances. About time a manager started to call them out, even if it hurts their wee feelings, which I think is fair enough. Look, the next aspect, I'll come on to you here, Andy, for this one. Clement also touched upon this in his press match post-conference, but it was basically the number of academy players that were featuring on and off the pitch for Rangers. Obviously something as supporters we're all desperate to see academy graduates coming through, playing for that first team. Leon King, Ross McCausland started. I couldn't believe it was Leon King's first start since last season, which was absolutely mental, given who he played for us in the Champions League and that. Robbie Fraser came on at left back for Ridvan in a substitution at 60 minutes, which was planned, and I thought he played brilliantly. How the hell nobody was on the end of that cross that got flashed along right in the corridor of uncertainty. There we go. That's me mentioned on this pod. That gets a mention every pod. Cole McKinnon, who's not even a right back. I thought he was brilliant at right back, and John Lefeko and Alec Lowry on the bench as well. How good is it to see so many academy players in that team, despite it being through circumstance? And how do you think they coped yesterday in a game like that?
I think they all coped well. Leon King, maybe a suspect of the first goal. But I think they all coped absolutely fine. You're right, it was kind of makeshift. I mean, you've got James Tavernier at centre half for a proportion of the game. You've got Cole McKinnon at right back, Fraser at left back. McCausland played the whole 90 minutes. I think Yilmaz, I read today somewhere that Yilmaz it wasn't actually meant to be 60 minutes. It was supposed to be 45 minutes he was supposed to play. But he got the 60 minutes, whether that's got an eye on next Saturday. I think probably so. No, listen, I think they handled it absolutely fine. Guess to the tail end of the season, was the season before we got to the UEFA Cup final, and we went to Hearts, went to Tynecastle actually the last game of the season. We had hundreds of kids with us, and they all played well. Lowry scored a couple of goals, in fact, did he not?
I'm sure Lowry scored. Cole McKinnon
scored the first. Cole McKinnon scored the third. I think Ramsey got the second.
John, that's twice you've done that to me this podcast, man.
So there we go. It's definitely good to see. Listen, I'm a self-professed Rangers dad. See when the league's done, get the kids on. Let's see what they can do. There's nothing wrong with that. Just because it's a cliche and it's a Rangers dad attitude doesn't make it wrong, by the way. It means let's see what they can do. Let's see if this academy's working. Judging by last night, it tends to be. Are they the long-term future for Rangers? We'll see. I doubt it. I doubt it very much, but you never know. But listen, they done okay last night. I'm hoping some of the injured players will be back, and we'll get a bit of good news this tail end of this week for Saturday, and especially for the cup final. I don't fancy having that many B team kids on the bench for the Old Firm Cup final. If we have to, then we will. But as it stands, I'm glad to see it last night, and they've done absolutely fine. Yeah, no, there's quite a few comments here. JD comes in and says Robbie Fraser was great, which is equally great and frustrating to see. Dado Puzzle's Blue Boots, which is a fantastic name as well, says Robbie Fraser should start the next game. RFC 72 says Fraser looked like he could be an option next season, was quite comfortable. And a very suspicious name here, Roddy Fraser, says it's the only way to start moving forward. So fair play, Robbie, if you're getting your dad in on that one. I'll come to you, John, here in terms of the next question. And it was, again, something Clement sort of alluded to. And he was talking about, it has to be the way forward in terms of these academy graduates. I know it's something he did as soon as he came in. Might have been the second training session or even the first training session that he had. It was so noticeable, all the B team that were training with the first team. I remember seeing, John Lefeko, Robbie Fraser, Cole McKinnon already in there. With that, is that what the way that Rangers should be proceeding, is maybe having less senior players but of more quality, and then just rotating when you're 2-3-0 up with some of the B team guys?
So just adding to the frustrating comment, the reason I nodded onto that was it was very much anyone who has watched Borna Barisic's last season for Rangers, do you think Robbie Fraser could have done the same performances that Borna Barisic had done? 100%. That would have made mistakes, yes, because you're a young footballer, and that's part of actually doing it. Barisic is making those mistakes at 29, 30. Robbie Fraser needs to come into the team and make those mistakes so that he can grow and become the player that could potentially be the backup left back to whoever we go sign. And then it means you've not got 2 left backs there that are picking up 15 grand a week. You've got one that's picking up 7, and you've got a better one that's picking up 20. And that's how you work it. And that should be it. It was the same with Leon King. I watched people in centre midfield. I've seen Leon King play, admittedly, for Scotland under 21s. It's CDM. But he's got a very good passing range. He's physical, he's good in the air, and he's good at tackling. I've watched John Lundstrom in games like knackered and just seen Leon King on the bench going, give him 15 minutes in there. Let's see what he's going to be, because the reality is, and the one great example, unfortunately, is across the city. Kieran Tierney was Celtic's reserves' third choice left back. Third choice left back, wasn't even the first or second, third choice. He got an opportunity to play in the first team and just jumped up. Do not. Any coach telling you they know how these players are going to react to 50,000 people at Ibrox are lying. You do not know until you put them out there. And that's why I think people like Alex Lowry have failed going to Hearts, because he's been indoctrinated into Rangers think the pressure of creating, needing to be the main man. If you put him in the Rangers team consistently, I reckon he would create. If you put Robbie Fraser on the Rangers team consistently, I think we would have a left back that we'd be comfortable in our squad already if he had played the minutes Barisic has played this season. And I think that's what needs to start happening. We need to stop going and filling our squad with people that are costing 15 grand a week because they've played in the English Championship for their whole career. That needs to stop. If there's a young player, if there's a Calvin Bassey, if there's a Dujon Sterling, if there's a young player available from England, go get them, because they're going to increase in value and we're going to sell them on. Don't go get 29-year-olds that we're going to have to pay 25 grand a week to have in this squad when we could promote a youngster who I think could do the same job. I consistently feel this way. Ross McCausland, I think, has stagnated a little bit at Rangers, but I don't think he's been any worse than any of the other right wingers that have played in that position this season, and he's cost us nothing. There's players. Cole McKinnon looks like a really good. Cole McKinnon looks like a player that could play 3 or 4 positions for us. I think technically he's really good, and I'm just. It becomes a point where I'm actually the opposite of Andy, where I'm going, I wish these guys would get more minutes. I know Andy's not saying he doesn't want that, but I'm like, these guys should be getting more minutes consistently all the time. All the time. You have to build. This is what we've not been doing. You have to build for what's thereafter, and you can't just have a 10, 15-man rebuild every 18 months.
Yeah, again, it's really hard to disagree with anything what you've said there. It was so frustrating seeing Robbie Fraser coming on, because I just assumed it was going to be Barisic. Not frustrating seeing Robbie Fraser coming on, but so frustrating that we haven't been using him more this season. He's clearly got a bit of ability. I've seen him a couple of times for the B team this year. He has been absolutely fantastic. Not like Ross McCausland, a guy that you think, maybe make it, maybe not make it. He has been a standout in that B team. Cole McKinnon as well. I was not shocked, but I was surprised to see him coming on at right back, seeing as you said that it's not his main position. I thought he was, again, I know there's the argument that maybe Dundee were a bit in holiday mode, yada, 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 but you know, you can only play against what you play against, and for me, those 2 guys really took their opportunity yesterday. Last couple of comments on it. Sharpie Staunch here says, the thing is, we always doubt the youngsters coming through. Hugo Bear says, Fraser should have been starting before Borna Barisic this season, agreeing with you, John. And the Bluebells Are Blue says, it's not just Fraser, McKinnon should be getting game time ahead of so many others. Look, the next point, it'd be remiss of me to not talk about this, but Andy, you know, we picked it up on our socials last night as well. There was a couple of, you know, players. Kamal Roof's virtually confirmed today that he'll be leaving the club. Barisic looked quite emotional after the game as well, going about wandering himself. And there's other players that it looks like it's probably their last game for Rangers. John Lundstrom, Ryan Jack, John McLaughlin. I'll include Seaman Silva in that as well. It probably looks like Cortez will look like he'll be here next year. But it was a very, very different send-off to what, you know, your Moreloses and your Arfields and your Kents and stuff like that got last year. What's your thoughts on, you know, some of these guys? I know we've only got 5 minutes left, but what's your thoughts on these guys' sort of contributions to Rangers, and is there any you'd be keeping for next year?
No, absolutely not. None of the names you read out there anyway, I don't think. I think last night, as I say, I never went to the game last night. And I've kind of read bits and bobs today and seen bits and bobs all over social media. And I've kind of been through the motions, feeling kind of quite sorry for Borna Barisic, who I thought had a good start to his Rangers career. And helped us get to the Europa League final, things like that. I think he perhaps maybe deserved a wee bit more of a send-off than he got last night. Kemar Roofe as well, possibly to an extent. But what can't be forgotten is it's all to do with timing, and it's nothing really. It's probably nothing personal. Last year when Kent, Morelos, and McGregor, etc., and Hillander and that left, they got a better send-off. There was nothing to play for before that. All these players had been really involved in getting us to a Europa League final, been involved in 55, things like that. So I'm not saying they deserved it more, but circumstances meant Ibrox was busier. Ibrox was probably morale was a wee bit higher. Last night, it was 4 days after the league was fucked. Hardly anybody was there. The first half was poor. The second half kind of lifted it. It was never going to be anything but a walk around last night. And I'm going through the motions. I'm kind of probably feeling more upset than I thought I would. I could have pride myself in being non-emotional, kind of harsh, if you like, hard. Turns out I'm not. I do feel a wee bit kind of sorry for them. They deserved a wee bit better last night. But that doesn't change the fact, no, these players' time's up. Roof's time's up. Barisic's time's up. Lundstrom's time's up. Interestingly, Ryan Jack didn't go round last night. I don't know what that means. Does that mean he was in signing a new contract? I don't know. You're hearing all sorts on social media and all opinions going. I know he was there last night, but didn't do the kind of walk around afterwards. I don't know what that means. But to answer your question, I think I feel a wee bit sorry for the kind of send-off they got last night. But that's circumstance. As I say, 4 days after the league was humped, a poor Ibrox crowd, a Tuesday night game, 7:30 kick-off. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there was a bit of circumstance here, but it was interesting to see. And yeah, I'll get some of the comments up. Sharpie Staunch here says, cheerio, Bonner, Barisic, Roof, Jack. Paul McGarrigle here says, I read that the players have already been told that they're going. Pete Lawrence says, personally just thinking age has caught up with Bonner. Bluebells Are Blue says, it's a shame some of these players have stuck around too long. That old saying, be the hero or stick around long enough to become the villain. And another wee one for Pete Lawrence here says, Lundstrom, on the other hand, has the tools but isn't using them. John, I've seen as we've only got a few minutes left. I'll get your thoughts on how Rangers should approach this Hearts game at the weekend. We already know Andy's thoughts on it. He wants to go full Geo and play 11 Waynes as with his Rangers Da hat on there, but which I kind of agree, to be honest with you, to an extent. But how should Clement approach this game? Should they be approaching it as a sort of experiment to see how we should line up against the final, or should we just be playing the kids, given that they've done so well in the last game?
I think I'd give the majority to inexperienced players. I think McCrory should get a start. I think Tavernier should start. I think Robbie Fraser starts at left back. Yilmaz can come on and get half an hour, so he's keeping his match sharpness ticking over, because realistically he'll be the one you'd want to play in the Celtic game. I would actually stick with the three in midfield of Diamondi, Raskin and Cantwell and build that relationship. And then the front three, I would have Cole McKinnon in, I would have Ross McCausland in, and I would have Dessers in. So I would have a sprinkling of maybe 5 or 6 of the younger players, but try and keep Tavernier, the three midfielders and Dessers on that pitch.
Yeah, totally agree. Hugo Bear here says, don't want to risk injury, so it sounds like he'll be playing the kids. William O'Win says, Hearts have basically rested their first team for the game against us. And RSC 72 here says, a Xhaka Stevens I'd like to see on the wings get a chance. And this is Ibrox, given that we do sponsor Thompson Xhaka. I would love nothing more than to see him getting a wee first team appearance before the season is out. And it'll be deserved, especially in his last couple of games for the B team. But look, that just about wraps it up. So thank you too much for both of my guests. Andy, it's been a pleasure. I know it's not been the most enjoyable time as a Rangers fan in the last few weeks, but as always, it's been really good talking to you, my man.
It's always a pleasure talking to you on a Wednesday night, Kyle. Crawled out my sick bed for it as well.
I know that's that. We'll need to get sponsored by Lempsip or something, because they've done wonders for you, man, in the past 24 hours. And John, we'll definitely need to get you more on the Wednesday podcast. That was one of the most passionate performances I've seen from anybody on a podcast on a Wednesday. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
No, and just for everybody out there, thank you for listening, watching. As always, we will be back to see how the kids have done against Hearts on Saturday. There'll be the regular Sunday pod, I'm sure, building up to that Scottish Cup final. But just a wee quick reminder, there's 5 things you can do to help us with the channel. It's give us a like, give us a subscribe, a share, enable notifications and comment. And I promise you, I've been practicing that all day and I still managed to mess it up. But thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in. Take care, and we'll see you all again soon.